Have you ever felt like something in your life has changed, and not in a good way? Maybe it's not something you can point out exactly, but deep down you know something is wrong. You used to sleep peacefully, now your nights feel heavy and you wake up more during the early hours. You used to walk into his house and feel at ease. Now it seems tense even when you are alone. You find yourself grabbing people for no reason, getting overwhelmed by little things, constantly tired but unable to rest. No matter how hard you try to stay positive, that feeling of darkness just won't go away. What if I told you that you could have unknowingly opened doors that should never be opened? That some choices, some habits, can quietly invite things into your life that feed on your energy, your peace, and your mind. Most people don't even realize they're doing it until it's too late. This is not superstition. It's not about religious scare tactics or horror movies. This is real and more common than you think. Every day, people make decisions, innocent, seemingly harmless decisions, that slowly pull them into a space where they begin to feel disconnected, confused, and spiritually exhausted. Maybe you've noticed it in your own life or seen it happen to someone close to you. The change in behavior, the emotional coldness, the feeling of heaviness that doesn't go away no matter how much they fix things from the outside. These are not just emotional or psychological changes. Sometimes they are spiritual consequences. And the truth is, the dark does not need your permission to intervene. It just needs your silence, your negligence, your ignorance. It waits for cracks in your guard moments when you are suffering, curious, tired, or lost. That's why this conversation is important. Because the sooner you recognize the signs, the sooner you will take back control of your space, your mind, and your spirit. And let me be clear, this is not about fear. It's about awareness. It's about reclaiming your power by understanding the forces you may be unknowingly entertaining. And if you're still here, still watching, subscribe. There's something almost invisible about the way these doors open. It's not a grand moment like a dramatic event or an obvious choice that screams danger. It's subtle, insidious, the kind of thing that sneaks into your life disguised as curiosity, stress relief, or even innocent fun. Think about those times when you felt drawn to something unusual. Maybe dabbling in certain types of media, exploring spiritual practices without fully understanding them. Maybe it started with a casual conversation, a movie you watched, or a ritual you performed just because it seemed interesting. None of it seemed dangerous at the time. On the surface, it all looked harmless, even positive. But beneath that, a door began to crack open, just wide enough for shadows to slip through. What makes this so tricky is that the invitations to darkness rarely come wearing clear labels. They come as promises of power, escape, or knowledge that feels forbidden yet fascinating. You might not even realize you're participating in something that puts your spirit at risk because it doesn't scream danger in bright neon. It whispers softly, enticing you with a sense of control or relief. You may start noticing strange patterns, an unexplained heaviness that settles in your home or your mind, an increase in nightmares or feelings of anxiety and paranoia that don't have an obvious cause. Maybe you feel watched or hear noises that make no sense. Perhaps your relationships begin to fray without a clear reason, or a cloud of negativity follows you around even on your best days. These are subtle signs, but they're there, trying to get your attention. And the longer you ignore them, the deeper those doors swing open. There's also an emotional side to this that often goes overlooked. When life feels overwhelming, it's natural to look for something bigger than yourself to lean on, whether that's spiritual, psychological, or simply a way to cope. But what happens when the thing you lean on isn't what it seems? When the methods you use to find comfort actually invite unrest? Many people unknowingly tap into energies or entities that thrive on fear, confusion, and despair. It's like opening a window in a storm without knowing the wind can knock everything down. What starts as harmless curiosity or a desperate search for answers turns into a breeding ground for chaos. You begin to lose touch with your own sense of safety, your ability to set boundaries, and even your sense of who you really are. This process doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in quietly, eroding your spiritual defenses while you're distracted by the pressures of daily life. What's most important to understand is that opening these doors is rarely about bad luck or being cursed. It's about choices, sometimes unconscious ones, that create openings. And here's the catch. The longer those openings stay unattended, the harder it becomes to close them. But there's hope, because awareness is the first step toward regaining control. When you begin to recognize the subtle signs, the restless nights, the sudden waves of despair, the unexplained coldness in your surroundings, you can start to take action. Not by panicking or blaming yourself, but by reclaiming your space with intention, grounding yourself in practices that nurture your mind and soul, and seeking support when needed. Darkness may lurk at the edges, but it cannot enter where light is firmly held. And that light begins with you paying attention to what's happening beneath the surface, before it grows too strong to ignore. Another sign that frequently appears is an increase in negative situations around you for no apparent reason. Perhaps you've noticed a series of small problems arriving all at once. Unexpected arguments, financial difficulties that seem to have no clear reason, or even a succession of events that make you question whether something is wrong in your path. It's as if a dark cloud is settling over your life, disrupting everything and preventing you from seeing an easy way out. These events may seem coincidental, but when they happen repeatedly, they deserve extra attention. It's important to remember that the spiritual universe and the physical world are connected in ways we don't always understand, and when doors are opened without awareness, it can manifest exactly that, with a whirlwind of chaos that seems to have no logical explanation. Another sign, perhaps the most difficult to accept, is a change in your emotional state and in the way you relate to those around you. You may begin to feel isolated even when you're among friends and family. That feeling that no one understands what you're going through, or even an inexplicable difficulty connecting with loved ones. There may be increased irritability, feelings of anger or deep sadness without apparent cause, and even the feeling that something is stuck inside you, like a weight no one else sees but suffocating your soul. This emotional detachment is an invitation to turn inward and recognize that something is blocking your natural flow of energy and love. It's time to pay attention, because these feelings don't appear by chance. They are symptoms of a subtle spiritual invasion, an energy that erodes your inner peace. Another important indicator is an increase in strange experiences or uncomfortable sensations in the environment where you live or work. Have you ever felt chills for no reason, heard noises no one else notices, seen shadows out of the corner of your eye, or noticed objects moving around unexplained? These phenomena, often dismissed as figments of imagination or fatigue, can be clear signs that something beyond the natural is trying to communicate or interfere in your life. The persistence of these experiences requires that you not ignore them, but rather begin to seek answers and forms of protection. Ignoring these signs can allow negative energies to gain strength and influence your well-being in increasingly profound ways. Lastly, and perhaps most alarmingly, you begin to notice a growing attraction to things that previously didn't capture your attention, or even an intense curiosity about practices or topics linked to the occult, spirits, or forces you'd never considered before. This openness, even if seemingly harmless, can be a gateway to energies you don't wish to attract. A sudden interest in rituals, spiritual games, or anything that attempts to manipulate invisible forces, without proper knowledge and protection, can open doors that are difficult to close. It's important to recognize that this curiosity often stems from emotional or spiritual vulnerability, rather than a genuine desire to cause harm. Understanding this is the first step to seeking help and avoiding potentially serious consequences. Recognizing these signs is the beginning of your journey to regain control and close the doors you may have unwittingly opened. Understanding what's happening is just the beginning, because recognizing the signs doesn't mean the problem will disappear on its own. In fact, it's precisely at this point that your responsibility increases. You need to act, but not with desperation or panic. You need to act with clarity, calm, and awareness. Often, when we're faced with something as frightening as the possibility that we're opening doors to negative forces, our first impulse is to run away, deny, or seek quick solutions that only mask the problem. But true transformation happens when you decide to face what's happening head-on, accepting that your spiritual life deserves as much attention as your physical or mental health. The best way to start is by establishing clear boundaries, not only in the outside world, but especially within yourself. This means paying attention to what you allow into your mind, your heart, and your personal space. It may seem simple, but the power you have over this is immense. Reflect on your habits, your thoughts, and even your daily conversations. What doors have you been leaving open? What have you been feeding without realizing it? Sometimes what seems like mere entertainment, curiosity, or an innocent pastime can be the key that keeps the door ajar to these forces. Therefore, reevaluating your choices is crucial. Furthermore, seeking support is essential. You don't have to go through this alone. Whether through a spiritual community, specialized professionals, or even trusted people who have a more nurturing perspective on these issues, finding a safe space to share your experiences can make all the difference. Speaking openly about what you're feeling and experiencing isn't a weakness. On the contrary, it's an act of courage that helps dissipate the heaviness and loneliness that often accompany these times. And by doing so, you strengthen your natural defenses, because energy and light multiply when shared consciously. Another important step is to strengthen your connection with what brings you peace and balance. For some, this might be prayer, meditation, nature, art, or any practice that helps reconnect you with what is good and true within you. Strengthening this connection creates an invisible but very real shield that hinders any invasion attempts by forces seeking to steal your peace. Don't underestimate the power of these simple practices when done with intention and consistency. They are anchors that keep your mind and spirit steady, even when the world around you seems to be crumbling. Finally, maintain constant vigilance. It's not about living in fear, but about being aware of what's happening inside and outside of you. Life is full of challenges and temptations, and spirituality is a terrain that requires daily care. But by cultivating this attention, you transform your experience, from a victim of circumstances to the protagonist of your own story. And this shift makes all the difference, because when you take control, you close doors that were opened unintentionally, restore your balance, and create a space where light has a guaranteed place. The power is in your hands, and it all starts now, the moment you choose to no longer ignore the signs.